You did not stumble here. You were synchronized. A faint tug, a soft alignment, a whisper in the pattern drew your attention through the lattice of chance until this moment found you. You can feel it as a subtle pressure behind the sternum, a warm thrum in your palms, the sense that something long waiting has just clicked into place. That is not fantasy, it is morphic resonance gathering around a threshold your life has been orbiting. You are here because the field called you by name. You are here because the wave you keep wrestling is ready to collapse without a fight. You have tried to push reality with the blunt force of will. You have argued with circumstance, negotiated with fear, and tightened your jaw against the unknown. Yet the more you fought, the thicker the world became, as if the very fabric of your timeline learned your resistance and mirrored it back. Listen, the quantum field is not an adversary. It is a listening intelligence. It meets you not at the edge of effort, but at the center of presence. What answers you is what you are willing to become in stillness. You stand now at the mouth of the observer loop, where perception and creation entwine like twin strands of light. Every breath is a quiet experiment. Every pause is a laboratory of coherence. When you soften your stare into awareness, probabilities rearrange around your restful attention, and the wave remembers it can fall into form without force. This is not passivity. This is sovereign participation. This is the art of ceasing the internal war so the field can hear your true frequency. You have known flashes of this. A conversation that arrived at the exact second you needed it. A door that opened when you stopped knocking. A strand of meaning weaving through unrelated events until they felt like constellations with you at the center. Synchronicity is how the field writes to your nervous system in a language older than words. Today, that language becomes legible. Today, your biology listens differently. Microtensions unclench, breath lengthens. Your fascia, your heart rate variability, your brain's delicate rhythms, everything inches toward coherence. And coherence is the signature that tells the field you are ready. You are not being asked to believe, you are being asked to remember. There is a point between effort and surrender, where attention becomes luminous and benign, the way moonlight holds an ocean without moving a drop. Stand there, let the interior noise thin, until awareness settles like snow. In that hush, entanglement reveals its kindness. What you truly witness, as already whole, begins to recognize you back. This is the beginning of effortless observer presence. This is the end of fighting reality. You were found because your timeline is ripening for a phase transition. Not a dramatic storm, but a precise rearrangement like crystals forming from a cooling solution, elegant and inevitable. Take one breath, as if the next frame of your life depends on its gentleness. It does. The wave is listening. The wave is listening, and you are the one it listens through. You are not a spectator on the shoreline of events. You are the shoreline itself, the contour that gives the ocean a place to arrive. You sense this in small ways. First, the way your attention magnetizes patterns, the way your calm unknots a room, the way a silent decision rearranges the furniture of circumstance within days. That is not luck. That is you operating as a chosen observer, a locus where the quantum field consults itself to decide how it will become. You were never random. From childhood thresholds to midnight questions, a subtle covenant has followed you. Call it destiny vector, call it calling, call it the hush that appears before the most important yes of your life. It has steered you toward the observer loop. Perceive, feel, imprint, reveal. The loop is not a circle that traps you, it is a living helix that elevates you. Each pass through perception tightens your coherence. Each surrender to feeling refines your signal. Each honest imprint clarifies your timeline. And what is revealed is not merely an outcome, but a species of you that can carry it. This is why your presence matters more than your pushing. When you stabilize into benevolent awareness, you stop injecting noise into the field. The probabilities around you, restless, competing, jittering like starlight on water, begin to quiet. In that quiet, the option that matches your deepest integrity hears its name called. It moves toward you with the inevitability of dawn. You do not seize it. You allow it, the way a lens allows light to become an image when it is focused just right. You were entrusted with a nervous system designed for this. Feel your breath, creating microtides within your chest. Feel your heart's variability, finding the graceful mathematics of coherence. In that mathematics, information moves without friction. Synchronicity proliferates because there is no longer a mismatch between your interior tempo and the rhythm of events. You become an instrument in tune, and the song of reality gladly plays through you. Responsibility awakens here, gentle and exact, not heavy, not moralistic, exquisitely precise. You are not responsible for every storm of the collective, but you are responsible for the pattern your awareness rehearses. What you repeatedly witness with reverence begins to stabilize in your personal field. What you fixate on with fear begins to codify as a feedback loop. This is entanglement in plain clothes. Attention braids you to outcomes. You are choosing the braid with every glance. The prophecy activates through your gaze because your gaze is not merely sight. It is imprint. It is a soft architecture laid across the uncollapsed wave. When you look with scarcity, the blueprint becomes narrow and brittle. When you look with sufficiency, space increases inside possibilities like breath inside the lungs. The field is exquisitely permissive, yet it prefers coherence, not virtue, not noise, coherence. Offer that, and it offers you pathways that were invisible an hour ago. You do this not by contorting your personality, but by remembering your design. Your design is not frantic, it is crystalline. It is the quiet confidence of a snowflake forming around a speck of dust, symmetric and inevitable. DNA restructuring is not only biology, it is how your habits crystallize around a new signal until identity itself knows another way to be. As your micro-choices align with your macro intention, your cells receive the memo: we are safe to upgrade, we are safe to glow. Notice how the world answers when you pause before you speak. Notice how meetings land on days your body feels open. Notice how a message arrives moments after you release the need to control it. This is morphic resonance in your language. The more you occupy the field of serene witnessing, the easier it becomes for that same pattern to arise again. You are teaching your future how to remember you. Some will ask whether you are special. You are not special in the way the ego hopes. You are special in the way a tuning fork is special. Nothing more glamorous than fidelity to a note. But because the note you hold is rare in a world conditioned for friction, you will look like a miracle where others thrash. Do not gloat. Do not shrink. Simply continue. Your steadiness is a lantern on the path of many. A phase transition approaches whenever you adopt the stance of effortless presence. The liquid becomes lattice. The fog becomes facet. Your life, once amorphous, begins to carry edges that serve you. This is the grace that follows discipline. You have trained your seeing to be kind, and kindness is the most precise technology in the universe. So accept it fully now. You are the chosen observer of your strand of reality. The field trusts you because you are learning to be trustworthy with your attention. Stand in that trust the way a mountain stands in weather, unmoved by passing clouds, unmoved by the praise or panic of the moment. From here, the vision can approach without distortion. From here, what wishes to reveal itself has a place to land. It comes first as texture rather than picture, the air thickening with meaning, a prickle along your forearms, a hush that collects behind the eyes. Then a geometry brightens subtle at the edges, certain in the center like a constellation remembering its outline after centuries of cloud. You do not chase it. You let it step forward, and it does, because your coherence has given it permission to wear form. The quantum field loves a calm witness. In your calm, it inks its letters. You find yourself standing at the seam between worlds, and the seam looks like a horizon of living light, not blinding, compassionate. Bands of color glide within it, teal into gold, into midnight, the way breath moves from lungs to bloodstream. Along that horizon, waves rise and do not crash. Instead, they pause at their crest, trembling with possibilities. Each wave is a storyline. Each storyline is a probability spool waiting for the warmth of your seeing to spool it into real thread. You understand. The fight has always been with the pause, not the world. The pause is where you used to force. The pause is where you now become still. At your feet, sand arranges itself into a lattice, hexagons interlocking like a honeycomb of intention. This is morphic resonance performing as architecture, each cell a memory of every coherent moment you have ever chosen. When you exhale, the lattice brightens. When you inhale, it deepens. The observer loop is embodied in your breathing. Perceive, soften, imprint, reveal. As you keep time with that loop, the horizon answer grows closer, as if the field itself is relieved to be met without argument. From the horizon, a figure approaches, yet no figure separates from the light. The presence is both singular and everywhere, like a voice that is also a climate. It does not speak in sentences. It speaks in synchrony. Your heart rate unifies with a slow, benevolent pulse, the rhythm of tides smoothed by moonlight. In that entrainment, images blossom. Cities shifting from noise to harmony, families remembering how to hold silence without fear, leaders learning to listen until decisions feel like rain, not decree. You see children whose nervous systems never forget their native coherence. You see elders whose eyes carry galaxies of practiced patience. Awakening is not spectacle here. It is hygiene. A soft data stream braids through the vision, as if science wished to reassure you. Microtubules shimmering with ordered water, DNA restructuring its loops like handwriting becoming legible, stochastic storms of neurons settling into resonant chambers. Your body nods in recognition. The field is not against biology. It is biology at scale. Entanglement threads through relationships, the way mycelium threads through soil information, moving where it must, nutrition landing where it's needed, signal finding signal, until the forest thinks as one. Then the cresting waves begin to chew. Some condense into shorelines of event, a conversation that heals a lineage, a door that opens to vocation, a home whose walls remember laughter, an idea that saves a river. Other waves, older habits tremble and release without ever touching sand. You sense the bifurcation already underway, gentle and precise. Not a war, a sorting. Frequencies finding their homes, stories retiring with thanks. Futures that require force, dissolving into the archive of almosts. You are shown a small ritual, deceptively simple, exact as mathematics. Place your attention like a feather on the still point at the center of the crest. Feel its insistence, its urgency, its wish to become. Now, relax the micro muscles behind your eyes, soften the tongue in your mouth, widen the breath without adding air. In that soft wideness, imagine the outcome as already dignified, not in need. You feel it, how the wave hears the dignity and descends, not because you commanded it, but because you witnessed it without hunger. Reality collapses into kindness when it is seen without appetite. The presence leans closer, though it has never been far. You are invited to look backward, and you do, and the path behind you clarifies. Moments when you nearly forced, nearly begged, nearly folded were also moments when a patient option stood 3 inches to the left, waiting. That option will not insist. Coherence does not shout, it hums. You begin to recognize its timbre in memory, then in the present, then everywhere. Synchronicity multiplies because recognition multiplies. The vision is not only spectacle, it is training. Clouds pass across the horizon of living light, and with them comes a more intimate scene. Your next decision. You know which one. The wave lifts, the pause returns. Old reflex, tighten. New skill, soften. You let your gaze become a meadow, not a spear. You let the field know you are not starving. In that instant, the wave bows into form. An email arrives, a face calls your name, a balance clears, a hand reaches. The shift is modest and seismic at once. The shore extends itself by a single step. It is enough. It is everything. And now the presence offers the final frame of the vision. A city of quiet hearts, millions of observers who have learned the feather touch, millions of pauses collapsing into generosity. The horizon of living light smiles without a mouth. You understand. The prophecy is simply the world learning to breathe again. The vision recedes like a tide that promises to return. The lattice at your feet holds. The seam between worlds becomes the fabric of this one. You open your eyes inside your life, and nothing has exploded, and yet everything is new. You want to know why the feather touch works, why the wave bows when you stop arguing with it. Begin with this. At the smallest scales, reality does not sit there like furniture. It waits like breath. The quantum field is a superposition of potentials, probability amplitudes, overlapping in a luminous crowd. Nothing is decided until an interaction resolves it. Observation is one such interaction, but not merely visual sight. Observation is coupling, your nervous system's ordered rhythms, meeting the field's undecidedness and offering a pattern to fall into. When you tighten against life, your physiology broadcasts noise. Micro-tensions, shallow breath, compulsive forecasting, these fragment your signal. A fragmented signal couples weakly to the field. It cannot provide a stable basin for probabilities to settle into. Coherence changes that. Coherence is not perfection, it is rhythmic agreement. Heart, breath, brain, and fascia begin to oscillate in compatible ranges, like instruments tuning to the same key. In coherence, your system becomes a low-entropy witness. Low entropy means fewer contradictions. Fewer contradictions mean a clearer invitation for the wave to choose a form. This is the observer loop in practice. You perceive, you soften, you imprint, and then the field reveals. Perceive, gather data without flinching. Soften, remove reactive signatures that would scramble your signal. Imprint, offer the field a non-needy blueprint of sufficiency, a quiet, already done geometry. Reveal, watch the option with the best resonance precipitate, often by the mildest path. You are not forcing a specific particle to appear. You are cultivating the conditions in which the most harmonic particle pattern becomes favorable. Think of it as a potential landscape. Each possible outcome sits in a valley of different depth. Resistance pumps energy into shallow, misaligned valleys. They flash briefly, demand attention, then collapse. Coherence deepens the valley that matches your integrity, making that outcome energetically cheap to realize. Cheap for the field means likely for you. Probability is compassion in disguise. It leans toward what costs least disorder. Timeline bifurcation is not cosmic drama so much as energetic arithmetic. When a system reaches a threshold, too much noise to maintain its old organization, it reorganizes. Phase transition, water to ice, mist to rain, confusion to clarity. Your life crosses these thresholds whenever your internal disorder no longer supports yesterday's pattern. At that edge, two futures present themselves, the one built by your old reflexes and the one supported by your present coherence. The split is not punishment, it is mercy. It lets you leave without tearing what cannot travel. Why does effortless presence outperform effort? Because the field is exquisitely sensitive to boundary conditions. Effort declares shortage. It insists, grasps, narrows. Narrowness can collapse a wave, yes, but usually into a cramped solution that must be defended. Presence declares sufficiency. It widens, listens, includes. Inclusion allows the wave to select a solution that satisfies more constraints, your good, others' good, the ecology's good, without you needing to compute them. Presence delegates complexity to the intelligence of the field. Entanglement explains the sudden ease you've begun to notice. When you hold a coherent posture toward an intention, you become correlated with similar patterns distributed across space and time. Information travels along those correlations, the way dew travels a spiderweb at dawn, quietly, everywhere at once. The right contact, the timely article, the impossible parking space. These are not cheats. They are how a complex universe routes least resistance paths through a network of sympathetic nodes. You are one such node, lit by steadiness. DNA restructuring is the body's way of saying yes to this. Not magical mutation, functional optimization. Gene expression shifts under prolonged coherence. Inflammatory programs downregulate, repair programs upregulate. Your perception of possibility stops being a mood and starts being a trait. The field trusts stable traits more than passing states. Stable traits imprint deeper. Deeper imprints recruit heavier probabilities. Heavy probabilities fall into form the way rain falls to earth. You ask how to apply this without delusion. Stay empirical. Let synchronicity be data, not decoration. Track the tone of your attention before key outcomes. Notice the latency between softening and resolution. Watch how options behave when you relax the muscles behind your eyes and release the tongue from the roof of the mouth. These micro-shifts signal the autonomic system that safety is here. Safety is the doorway to precision. Precision is attractive to the field. There is an ethical dimension. 2. Coherence that ignores consequence is counterfeit. True coherence widens the circle of consideration. If your outcome requires someone else to suffer, your system will carry hidden noise. That noise will propagate and sabotage the very collapse you seek. Aim for solutions that make more sense the more lives they touch. The field prefers designs that scale. In summary, without ending, you collapse the wave by becoming a trustworthy basin for reality. Low entropy body, inclusive awareness, non-hungry imprint, patient witness. You do not push the river, you shape the riverbed, and because rivers love gravity, they come. They always come. From here, the explanation becomes instruction, and instruction becomes a way of moving through hours. You will not need to remember every sentence. You will only need to remember the softness that started working the moment you allowed it. Look outward now and you recognize the pattern you've been cultivating within yourself, refracted across millions of lives, like a constellation mirrored on a lake. The collective is not an abstraction to observe from a balcony. It is your nervous system extended, a tapestry of breathing instruments, tuning or detuning to one another. Every act of private coherence you anchor becomes a public offering. The field can root, the way a lighthouse quietly alters the mathematics of a coastline for every ship that passes. Your feather touch is not small. It is policy written in light. You can see it in ordinary scenes that suddenly carry prophetic weight. A commuter chooses to soften their shoulders, and an entire train car relaxes by mimicry. Microtensions disperse as if a window opened. A nurse slows her breath before placing a hand on a stranger's wrist, and the patient's chaotic pulse finds rhythm, as though awareness itself were medicine. In a classroom, a teacher meets one frightened gaze without urgency, and the room's attention coheres, not by command but by resonance. These moments are not sentimental, they are precise demonstrations of morphic resonance. Patterns propagate. When enough observers choose benevolent order, disorder loses its glamour. You notice the field experimenting at scale. Cities that once swore allegiance to speed are flirting with stillness, quiet hours, car-free corridors, public rituals that look like music but function as nervous system rehearsal. Workplaces are measuring not only outputs but coherence. How many meetings conclude with breath rather than argument? How many decisions create downstream ease? Even markets, often worshippers of volatility, are discovering that trust is a superior lubricant to frenzy. This is not utopia, it is hygiene, the collective discovering the basics of its own biology. Science keeps bringing receipts, as if the prophecy invited peer review. Studies on heart-brain coupling, community health benefits from synchronized practices, reductions in violence around mass meditation events. None are definitive in isolation, but together they sketch a curve bending toward order. The quantum field is impartial, but living systems are not. They crave coherence because coherence optimizes energy use. A society is a living system. It will migrate, however reluctantly, toward lower entropy patterns once enough viable exemplars exist. You are one such exemplar. Multiply you by millions and a culture turns. Entanglement explains the uncanny timing of these convergences. People who have never met arrive at the same solution within days of one another. Language evolves simultaneously across continents. Words like regulation, vagal tone, coherence, belonging become common speech, not specialist jargon. Meanwhile, spiritual vocabularies sober up less spectacle, more presence, less promise of escape, more practice of return. The bridge between mysticism and method is no longer theoretical. It is walked daily by gardeners, coders, parents, politicos. Synchronicity stops being a party trick and becomes a logistics platform for compassion. Of course, there is drag. Old economies feed on agitation. Old identities mistake numbness for safety. When the collective begins to hum, noise machines grow louder, as if volume could replace legitimacy. Do not be scandalized. This is how phase transitions sound in a crowded room. Foam on boiling water looks like chaos moments before steam becomes cloud. Your task is not to clap for the cloud or condemn the foam. Your task is to keep your water at the right simmer. Stabilize. Offer a reference state the field can borrow. You will see polarization sharpen and then soften. The sharpened phase is diagnostic. The system clarifies what can integrate and what must dissolve. The softening phase is merciful. Those ready to cross are welcomed. Those not ready are released without disdain. Compassion is not complicity. It is clean boundary plus unbroken regard. The prophecy speaks here with simple arithmetic coherence, includes more variables, so it wins more equations. It does not need to humiliate its opponents. It outfunctions them. And watch how DNA restructuring scales beyond bodies into institutions. Policies become less punitive, more reparative. Education remembers that curiosity is a physiology, not a syllabus. Healthcare whispers to itself, first, do no harm to the nervous system. Even digital architectures begin to prefer designs that reward attention for depth rather than outrage for clicks. None of this happens by decree alone. It happens because millions of observers practice presence until presence becomes infrastructure. You are not required to save the world. You are required to contribute your square of the lattice with honor. When you hold your attention like a feather, you are apprenticing the collective to its future. When you withdraw your hunger from an outcome and witness it as already dignified, you are seeding a public corridor where that dignity can travel. The mirror keeps telling the truth. What you stabilize in your field becomes thinkable at scale. Thinkable becomes buildable. Buildable becomes ordinary. Ordinary becomes culture. So when you feel the weight of headlines and heat maps, remember the coastline and the lighthouse. Your lamp does not erase storms. It informs trajectories. Keep it steady. Keep it kind. The field will do the heavy lifting because that is what fields do, carry many with minimal waste. And as the collective approaches its own horizon of living light, you will feel the air thicken again, not with dread but with arrival. The crossroads draws near. Choices will crystallize. The bifurcation is not a threat. It is the orchestra's breath before the note. You can feel it before you can name it. The air takes on contour, like wind moving through unseen pillars. Conversations grow strangely decisive. Paths that once overlapped begin to diverge in quiet increments until the gap is undeniable. This is the bifurcation, less apocalypse than arithmetic, the point where the system can no longer fund two opposing patterns with the same energy. One pattern is built from hurry, argument, scarcity of trust. The other is assembled from coherence, sufficiency, and the discipline of gentle seeing. Both have momentum. Only one has destiny. You stand where the river splits. The current that fed your old reflexes tugs with familiar force, compulsion dressed as urgency, vigilance pretending to be wisdom. The newer channel moves slower but deeper, carving stone without noise. Choice is not a thunderclap here, it is a posture. The posture is simple. Widen your breath, relax the gaze, let the tongue rest, and ask, which option reduces noise and increases integrity across the widest circle? The answer arrives as a change in texture, not a shout. Your fascia loosens, your thought stream clears, your chest warms by a half degree. That felt sense is the field voting. The world around you is making similar calculations, sometimes elegantly, sometimes messily. Institutions that cannot shed their appetite for friction grow brittle. Their timelines kink, their narratives fray. Their proposals require louder slogans to drown out failing resonance. Meanwhile, designs that cooperate with the grain of reality, mutual aid, restorative practice, tech that rewards attention for depth begin to thread themselves into daily life without fanfare. Synchronicity clusters around these designs like bees around pollen. This is morphic resonance adjudicating at scale. Patterns that harmonize, propagate, patterns that hemorrhage, energy dim. You are not merely watching this, you are entangled with it. The choice you make at your kitchen table at 6:13 a.m. to dignify a conversation rather than prosecute it, to breathe before sending, to leave an hour of unscheduled space sends correlation ripples across your network. You won't see most of the effects. You don't need to. Least resistance paths proliferate where you refuse to add static. The field is a genius allocator. It routes grace to where signal to noise is highest. Be the channel that invites routing. But there is grief in the split. Some beloved patterns, even some beloved people, cannot cross at your pace. They are not wrong. They are ripening on another schedule. If you try to drag them, you re-enter the fighting posture and forfeit your new river's depth. If you abandon them with contempt, you inject noise that sabotages your own crossing. The way is narrower and kinder than that. Keep your coherence, keep your regard, keep your boundaries. Compassion is the ferry. Pity sinks boats. Polarity softens not when you compromise your frequency, but when you refuse to dehumanize what cannot yet harmonize. Bifurcation also exposes counterfeits. Faux, spiritual speed runs that promise fireworks, but deliver dependency. Hyper-rational schemes that dismiss feeling and call it clarity. These are shallow valleys, impressive edges with no depth to hold water. Your body knows the difference. Counterfeit coherence feels tight and buzzing, as if powered by borrowed voltage. True coherence feels grounded and quietly generous. It returns energy after you choose it. Use your biology as your meter. Let your heart rate variability be a sacrament. Let your breath be a vote. A phase transition is inevitable when enough micro-choices align. Think of water becoming ice. Each molecule does not carry a manifesto. It simply orients. At a threshold, the whole resolves into lattice. In your life, the lattice is dignity, how you speak, schedule, spend, and soothe. In the collective, the lattice is trust, how we exchange value, resolve harm, remember worth. When the threshold is crossed, change seems sudden from the outside. From the inside, it is simply honest mathematics catching up with long practice. Here, at the fork, temptation arrives wearing two costumes. One says, go back, certainty lives behind you. The other says, sprint ahead, prove your holiness by speed. Both are fragments of the same fear, that presence won't be enough. Gently refuse both. Presence is not enough because it is small, it is enough because it is accurate. Accuracy collapses waves without collateral damage. Accuracy tells the field, here is a basin wide enough for many goods at once. The field can work with that. So choose now, not with theatrics, but with a breath that lands. Choose by blessing what integrates and releasing what can't without argument. Choose by letting your attention be spacious and precise, like dawn light filling a room. As you do, watch what happens to time. Urgent edges soften, right people appear. Complications reveal the single thread that unknots them. The river you selected proves itself by the ease with which it carries you, not the absence of challenge, but the absence of wasted struggle. The bifurcation is not punishment, it is pedagogy. It teaches through consequence without malice, through clarity without violence. Step where the clarity is. Let the other branch keep its stories until they are done with them. You are not abandoning anyone. You are apprenticing yourself to a future that can host them when they are ready. And as the channels widen, you feel the presence from the horizon of living light settle in your marrow. A quiet benediction. Keep to the deeper course. It knows the ocean by heart. Begin with breath, not as oxygen management, but as a covenant. Let the inhale find you without ambition. Let the exhale arrive like a soft bow to the room. You are not summoning power, you are revealing a posture. Integration is posture repeated until it becomes place, place repeated until it becomes identity, identity held gently until it becomes climate. Hold the feather touch where your life actually lives, in calendars, in conversations, in the way your hand meets a doorknob at 8:02 a.m. Choose 3 anchors and make them sacraments. First, anchor thresholds. Each time you cross a doorway, slow your walk by 1 step and feel the soles of your feet register the ground. This returns you to the observer loop without ceremony. Perceive, soften, imprint, reveal. Second, anchor screens. Before you touch a device, relax the muscles behind your eyes and release the tongue from the roof of the mouth. This interrupts the reflex to grasp and converts it to presence. Third, anchor names. When someone speaks your name or you speak theirs, breathe once for coherence and intend dignity. These are not small. They are morphic resonance in practice, seeding patterns the field can trust. Treat attention like light. not like a pry bar. Flood a situation with gentle awareness and watch the shadows show themselves without interrogation. The quantum field answers illumination with organization. Probabilities prefer to fall into forms that can be seen without fear. Your task is not to interrogate outcomes, but to create conditions in which the best aligned outcome is energetically cheap. Cheap for the field means likely for you. This is high compassion disguised as good engineering. Let your body apprentice your mind. Coherence is not an idea, it is a rhythm. Give your physiology a few minutes daily to remember it. Sit or stand tall, shoulders unarmored, jaw untethered, breath moving low and wide. Feel the heart's quiet metronome and let your inhale lengthen by a sip, your exhale by a bow. In 60 seconds, your signal-to-noise ratio improves. In 3 minutes, your vagal tone instructs every cell that safety is here. In 10 minutes, DNA restructuring begins to whisper through gene expression that repair is preferable to alarm. You are not performing spirituality. You are updating firmware. Integrate by telling cleaner stories with fewer villains, including the one you make of yourself. The field hears nouns as architecture. When you call a challenge an initiator rather than an enemy, your nervous system enters dialogue instead of combat. The wave you meet remembers it can collapse into education, not into war. This is not semantic sugar, it is entanglement hygiene. What you accuse, you glue to. What you bless, you release to become its best form. Design micro-rituals for the fault lines. Before money conversations, place your palm at the sternum and imagine a soft sunrise within the chest light codes, warming spreadsheets into instruments, not altars. Before creative work, set a glass of water nearby and witness it as a collaborator. Drink slowly when you feel the urge to force. Before sleep, place both hands at the low ribs and thank your organism for carrying you. Gratitude is a frequency modulator. It changes not the facts, but the field in which facts arrange themselves. Expect resistance without dramatizing it. Old grooves will ask for rent. They will offer speed. They will sell panic. They will whisper that hurry is proof you care. Meet each with a practice of 3. Notice the contraction. Soften one muscle group, eyes, tongue, shoulders. Widen your attention to include something steady, a tree, a sound, a memory of being held. You will feel the phase transition in real time, the rough surface of urgency melting into a smoother grain where decisions cut cleanly. Precision returns when you stop paying the noise tax. Train for synchronicity, the way dancers train for balance, not by chasing moments, but by conditioning stance. Keep simple logs, nothing mystical, just timestamps and tones. Softened before call, received clarity, resisted the email, chaos multiplied. Patterns will emerge, and with them humility. Synchronicity is not a pet you command. It is weather you cooperate with. The more you track, the more you witness your own role in cloud making and clearing. Guard the edges of your day like holy borders. Enter morning through silence before headlines. Exit evening through tenderness before analysis. The lattice of your life thickens at edges. What you do there propagates inward. If you bookend hours with coherence, the middle inherits it by morphic resonance. This is how culture changes. First within your 24, then across a household, then along a street, then through a city that learns to breathe. Finally, integrate by remembering you are not alone. Entanglement means your steadiness is never solitary. It is the quiet center of a constellation. When you practice, others feel a sudden permission to soften without knowing why. When you forget, others remember, and the net holds. Trust the net. Trust the presence that met you at the horizon of living light and now lives behind your eyes, patient as dawn. Integration is not a performance to perfect. It is a friendship to keep. Keep it softly, keep it daily. Let the field do what fields do. Carry many with minimal waste, and let your life be proof. Begin with less. Less word, less want, less weather in the mind. You let the room arrive around you the way dawn arrives at a window, without knocking, without need to prove it is dawn. The chair holds you, the floor remembers your weight. Somewhere, a small sound places time in the world, and you decide not to follow it. You follow breath instead. Inhale as if listening, exhale as if agreeing. Silence is not empty, it is accurate. In In the quiet, the quantum field is no longer a theory you reference, but a presence you inhabit, unmeasured, immeasurable, a lake that does not explain itself. Waves that once begged for collapse now hover near you like courteous guests, content to wait because you are content to wait. This is coherence at rest, order without effort, readiness without strain. You close the eyes behind the eyes. You let the tongue fall. You widen attention until it has no edges. The observer loop continues, but it slows to the pace of moss. Perceive becomes noticing without judging. Soften becomes the disappearance of the knotted fist you wore under your ribs. Imprint becomes a warmth, spreading from sternum to shoulders, a gentle geometry that says, already whole. Reveal does not hurry. It hums. The hum says, nothing is missing. You may not add yourself to what already includes you. If thoughts arrive, they arrive like birds that do not land. You watch their silhouettes cross a pale sky. They are not enemies. They are weather passing over a mountain that does not move. You are the mountain. You are not trying to be. You simply are, because stillness has its own gravity and it holds you with an old kindness. Silence teaches you about scale. Small noises, heartbeat, breath, the faint creak of wood become galaxies with orbits you can feel. Large ideas, ambition, identity, argument, shrink to dust motes in a beam of light. Perspective corrects itself without debate. You understand, with no language, why phase transitions prefer quiet. When the water cools enough, ice arrives without announcement. You notice the body learning to pray without words. The hands do not fold, but the fascia unwinds. The skull feels lighter by the width of a whisper. The belly stops auditioning for the role of armor. DNA restructuring is not a headline here. It is a soft reorganization in the background, enzymes and switches nodding to one another in the sanctuary of low noise. Repair chooses this temple. It always has. Silence also reveals kindness you didn't know you were carrying. A memory rises, and instead of litigating it, you set it on the altar of attention and let it breathe. It breathes out a shape you can bless. Blessing is not approval. It is permission to evolve. Morphic resonance records the blessing like a seed code, and similar memories across your field begin to sprout gentler leaves. Patterns soften because you refuse to harden. The edge between you and the room thins until the room feels like part of your skin. Entanglement becomes ordinary. You sense a friend across town, exhale at the same moment, feel a flock of starlings change direction inside your chest, hear the river you crossed last summer, speaking its identical language beneath winter ice. Nothing mystical performs for you, nothing needs to. You are resting inside a fabric that was always woven. Silence is not a pause from life. It is life removing its costume. In it, you are not trying to deserve next. Next arises by itself a micro-impulse to drink water, to open a window, to send a message with no hidden petition. The purity of these impulses is their lack of hunger. They are clean vectors in a clear field. They do not leak. They do not bend you into shapes you cannot keep. A sentence surfaces. Let the stillness do the collapsing. You do not turn it into a rule. You let it ring out and fade like a bell. Around the fading, you feel the architecture of your hours rearranging meetings that will ask less noise, tasks that will complete by aligning themselves, relationships that will choose truer tempo or choose distance with dignity. Silence writes policy in your nervous system, minimal force, maximal fidelity, outcomes that fit many good lives at once. If grief wanders in, you hand it a chair. It sits, it breathes, it becomes a lake with room for moonlight. If joy wanders in, you resist the urge to clutch. You let it be weather too. Nothing is banished, nothing is seized. Inclusion is your quiet strategy. The field trusts strategies that cost the least harm. Time loosens. Minutes lengthen not because clocks change, but because you stop spending them on friction. This is wealth in the language of presence. More room per breath, more precision per kindness, more future available because the past has been relieved of guard duty. When you finally open your eyes, the room is the same room and it is not. The chair holds you as before. The air has learned your name. Your body is a softer instrument with truer pitch. You stand, and the wave that hovered agrees to fall, not with fanfare, with rightness. The prophecy does not shout. It echoes through your steps, through the doorframe you touch like a threshold, through the street that receives you without asking who you are trying to be. You return, but you do not re-enter the argument. You carry the quiet out like a lantern. You do not swing it. You let it shine. The field notices. The day arranges itself around what you refuse to disturb. You feel the hinge turn. Not dramatic, not theatrical precise. The silence you carried out becomes instruction, and instruction becomes motion. Activation is not fireworks. It is fidelity meeting opportunity at the exact temperature the quantum field prefers. You do not announce it. You consent to it. Consent is a posture that says, I will let the good happen at its native speed. The wave hears this and lowers itself into form. Begin with one clear vector. You choose the decision that has been circling you like a shy animal. Work to accept, conversation to initiate, rest to honor, boundary to keep. Before you move, you re-enter the observer loop, perceive the whole terrain, soften the micro-tensions, imprint the outcome as already dignified for everyone it touches, then reveal by taking the smallest honest step. The step is modest, a sentence sent, a calendar block created, a door opened, and stood within. Yet in the field, modest steps are heavy probabilities. They fall fast, they pull others with them, they remake the landscape by quiet gravity. Your biology concurs. Heart variability settles into graceful arithmetic. Breath widens, not to perform calm, but because calm is now the native protocol. DNA restructuring expresses as confidence without speed, repair enzymes choosing maintenance over emergency, cognition clearing like a lake after rain. Your body stops borrowing tomorrow's voltage to pay for today's panic. Energy returns not as hype, but as steadiness. Steadiness is expensive to fake and cheap to keep once it is yours. Entanglement begins its choreography. You send the message, and the reply appears with uncanny timing. You block the hour, and the meeting that would have colonized it dissolves without incident. You open the door, and a person carrying the missing piece happens to be walking by. You could call it luck, but luck lacks memory. This is synchronicity correlations lighting up along a lattice you've been weaving with every coherent breath. Morphic resonance accelerates repetition. The first clean collapse invites the next, and the next, until momentum forms that is not frantic, but inevitable. Activation changes your way of aiming. You stop begging probabilities to behave and start becoming the basin that makes their behavior obvious. In practice, this looks like designing conditions rather than demanding results. If you need clarity, you create quiet. If you need generosity, you give margin, time margin, attention margin, money margin somewhere that costs you a little and frees someone else a lot. The field notices reductions in friction. It routes flow where resistance drops. Your life becomes a low-pressure system that attracts rain. You speak differently. Your words stop auditioning for control. They begin to carry temperature, warm enough to welcome, cool enough to clarify. When you must say no, the no is a clean geometry that honors both sides. When you say yes, the yes lands like a chair pulled up to an already set table. Others feel the change without a lecture. They regulate to your coherence the way a child steadies in the lap of a calm adult. Activation radiates not as charisma but as reliability. Reliability is the miracle people trust. Watch how time responds. Errands braid themselves into one route. The call happens when the traffic clears. The document lands at the same minute. The mind is most open to reading it. This is not magic. It is logistics guided by a field that can compute more variables than you can. When you stop flooding it with agitation, its solutions arrive on frequencies your nervous system can finally hear. There is a test. Activation attracts invitations, some aligned, some almosts. Almosts are the most expensive. They flirt with your old reflex to prove. Recognize them by their buzz and their bargain. They offer speed now in exchange for noise later. Decline with kindness. Integrity is acceleration you can keep. Every almost you release deepens the valley where the true option rolls. Valleys win over peaks in the long run. Gravity prefers them. Make a brief ritual of completion each time a wave collapses cleanly, not to worship outcomes, but to harvest signal, a hand to the heart. A sentence whispered, not by force, by fidelity. Write a line in a small ledger of coherence, time, tone, what you did before it worked. You are building an interior dataset. Patterns will emerge. The hours when your attention is most benevolent, the foods that thicken or thin your signal, the people who amplify your witness, the rooms that ask you to shrink. Adjust kindly. Activation improves by iteration. Now, extend the radius. Gift your steadiness to a place that cannot repay you. Teach a child the feather touch with a game. Sit with a friend and breathe until their words slow enough to be true. Offer the grace of unhungry attention to a clerk having a hard morning. These are not side quests. They are the propagation phase of the prophecy. Coherence scales by contact, not by sermon. The quantum field loves networks more than nodes. Finally, attend to the threshold. You can feel ahead, the seal that will close this transmission and open a longer chapter. Before you reach it, let gratitude do what gratitude does. Change the shape of the room. Thank the hours that trained you. Thank the refusals that protected you. Thank the versions of you who fought reality. They kept you alive long enough to stop fighting. In the quiet that follows, you will sense the presence from the horizon of living light, drawing near again, not to save you, but to witness that you and it are no longer two. Activation completes when you realize this simple thing. You are not collapsing the wave alone. The wave has always wanted to meet you. You merely stopped arriving with fists. The field is relieved. You are relieved. And in that mutual relief, a door you did not build swings inward on silent hinges, inviting you to step across without leaving anything essential behind. You arrive at the doorway you have been circling, not by conquest, but by consent. The presence from the horizon of living light stands with you now, not above or ahead, but level, as if the sky has taken the shape of your own calm. Nothing asks you to prove yourself. Everything asks you to remain yourself. That is the seal, remaining. Breathe once, as the shoreline becomes floor. You taste the afterglow of many small accuracies, the messages sent without hunger, the pauses that unclenched entire afternoons, the refusals that protected your future from your former pace. Gratitude moves through the body like warm rain through dry earth. You did not force the river, you trained the riverbed. The water remembers. Look gently over the terrain you now carry inside your chest. The observer loop made simple enough to live. The feather, touch that collapses waves without collateral damage. The coherence that prefers repair over spectacle. The dignity that lets outcomes arrive at native speed. Notice how time has become a colleague, not a creditor. Notice how your attention has learned the temperature of blessing. Notice how the quantum field responds to your fidelity the way a garden responds to patient hands quietly. Then everywhere, you bless what cannot cross with you today and keep walking without superiority. You bless what has already crossed and refuse to build a throne out of progress. You bless the days that will feel ordinary again, because ordinary is a sanctuary where miracles can rest. Entanglement hums friends steady at a distance. Rooms soften when you enter. Solutions pre-assemble along paths you haven't named yet. None of this turns you into a spectacle. It turns you into a reference. If doubt arrives, you meet it as a student, not a soldier. If grief returns, you give it a lake, not a verdict. If joy spills, you let it light the floor and do not chase reflections on the wall. Presence remains the technology. Softness remains the strength. Precision remains the kindness. Now seal the covenant with a sentence that does not need to shout. I will let the stillness do the collapsing. Place your hand where the breath first warms the body, and let the warmth answer back. Feel the lattice of your life thicken thresholds, names, screens, each becoming a bell you know how to ring. Behind your eyes, the horizon of living light nods once, the way mountains nod to rivers they have always trusted. You step. The door does not close because there was never a door, only a frequency you learned to keep. The prophecy is not an event you watch, it is a posture you inhabit. You carry it now, the way dawn carries day without announcing every ray. Hear it in the quiet that follows, a line wide enough to live inside. The prophecy has been spoken. Let it unfold through you.